I'm with Debbie Nathan from Artsbridge Institute. Now, Debbie, what is Artsbridge Institute?
So Artsbridge Institute is an organization that works with teens. We work with Israeli and Palestinian and American teens. Their age is 15 to 17 years old. And we have a summer program, and we also work here in the region during the year. But during the summer program, the students come together in the United States, and they learn how to have difficult conversations. So we teach them how to talk to each other, and we also work through the arts. So they are working together to create art over the 3-week period that we then put on exhibit. So they're learning how to negotiate with one another, how to work together, how to build something together. And then our hope is that they come back to their home communities and continue to do the work and continue to work towards building something together.
And when were you started as an organization, and why were you started?
So we started in 2007. Our first summer was in 2008. And we started because we felt that it's possible to bring people together, and that it's fine to bring them together to have fun together, but that people really need to learn the skills of having difficult conversations, that you can't have those conversations until you learn how to have them, until you learn how to listen to one another, how to respect one another. And we really felt that working through the arts and dialogue was an important way to go. I'm an art therapist and a therapist, and so I know the power that art has for people. And I felt that it was something that was important and something that I felt could really make a difference.
Is art an important way of bringing two people together?
Well, I think it's a really important way. It's an international language. It's a universal language. And even when people are having a hard time with words, they can still work together to create something. And I think that's what the students discover, that even though the dialogue might have been really difficult or painful, they still come together in the afternoon and they create art together. And so they learn you don't have to agree with one another. You don't have to always agree, but you can still respect each other and work together to build something.
Now, at the moment, you're bringing people together for a summer leadership program. What is the leadership program? What things do you do?
So the Summer Leadership Program is a 3-week intensive program, and they come together they're with each other 24 hours a day. They live on campus, and we're on campus in Western Massachusetts, and they spend 3 hours in dialogue a day. It's more interesting than it sounds, but again, it's really, the first part is really learning how to have dialogue before they really start talking about some difficult issues. So they're learning how to talk rather than just yelling at each other and blaming each other. And they also have time for fun. They do sports and other activities. And then in the afternoon, they're doing art. So we are partnering with an organization called Music in Common this summer, and we're very excited about that. And they will be providing the music program. And we also have filmmaking and visual arts. So one American, one Palestinian, and one Israeli will work together over 3 weeks to create a piece of art.
Now, how do both Palestinians and Israelis respond when they come together?
Well, I think in the beginning there's a lot of suspicion. There's fear. There's not knowing what's going to happen or how the other is going to see them, not knowing whether it's safe or not. But it doesn't take long before they become friendly. And that's the first step. But what we hope is that it will go deeper than that, because the friendship that they gain in the beginning is really just a sort of shallow kind of friendship. And we want there to be a deep understanding and something that goes deeper than just, okay, let's have fun together. So it takes them time. It takes them time to get comfortable with each other and to begin that process of trusting each other.
Do they get the opportunity to listen to each other's stories, the difficulties and the hardships that they've been through on each other's side?
Absolutely. And that is a very important part of our program. And the first part of the summer is really learning how to listen, how to speak so that others can hear you, and how to be curious, how to ask questions out of curiosity. And so that's the first part of the summer. And once they understand that, then they can really begin the process of sharing their personal stories and the challenges that they face and the hardships that they face and how this conflict affects them in their lives. So by the time they get to that part, they can really listen to one another.
Do you see a change in their attitude during the course of the 3 weeks?
Actually, yes, it's quite remarkable. As they begin to hear each other and really listen to one another, it's quite moving. It's painful also. It's painful to go through that experience and to hear these difficult stories, but it's an important part of the process. And as they learn to listen and as they learn to speak so that others can hear them, they really develop compassion for the other. And that doesn't mean that they have to agree with each other. That it's okay not to agree, but you can still respect somebody and still have compassion for somebody, whether you agree with them or not.
What sort of stories do they talk about?
Well, there's some very, very painful stories on both sides. You know, I think for many of the Palestinian students, it's sometimes shocking for them to hear that some of the Jewish Israeli students have no idea what life is in Palestine is like, and that's quite shocking. And it's hard to blame somebody when you begin to realize they don't even know. And for many of the Palestinians, they talk about the daily hardships of checkpoints and the army and how that impacts their daily lives. For Israelis, the stories of the fear and the security and not knowing when somebody is going to come to do you harm just because you're walking in the street or just because you are Israeli. And so there are a lot of stories that are shared, but I think also really important is that they're listening to each other.
Are you developing the youth to actually bring peace and bring change themselves?
Well, that's the idea. The idea, and one of the things that I tell the students is, you know, our generation blew it. It's obviously the governments are not getting any closer to an agreement, but their generation is the generation that I see that has the most potential to create change. But first they have to create that change within themselves. And once they do that, and once they develop the skills and the tools that they need, then amazing things are possible. But, you know, the other thing is that they've got to imagine that it is possible. And so many people here have lost that hope and lost that sense that it is possible, that I think the first step is to allow them to imagine that it is possible.
Do they walk away understanding the other person's point of view?
I think they do. I mean, I'm not going to speak for every single student. I think that students come to the program on many different levels and with many different levels of understanding. And so it might take some students longer. I mean, I've had students come to me years later and say, Debbie, I'm so glad I saw you. I want to tell you, now I get it. Now I understand. And so for some it takes time. But to me, if they open a little bit and they can shift a little bit, then that's something. That's a step forward. And to me, that's the important part.
Are you making a difference?
I hope so. I think one can only hope. For me, each student is unique and special. And if I can touch some of those students and have an impact on their lives, then I think I've done something. And so I can only hope. You'd have to ask the students that, I guess.
And what's your prayer for the students as they go through this program?
Oh, wow. My prayer for them is that they have strength, they have inner strength, that they have faith in themselves as well as in others, that they can open up to possibilities, even though that's a hard thing to do, and that they stay curious and stay hopeful.
And you have a website for people who'd like to know more. What's your website address?
It's www.artsbridgeinstitute.org.
Okay, Debbie, thank you very much.
Thank you.